Hey there, listeners. It's me, Greg Delmage, coming at you with episode 211. And before we get into that, I'm going to go into the little bit of news we got. To quote everybody's favorite rabbit godfather, Peppy Hare, it's quiet. Too quiet. Anyways, let's go into it. So first things first, the PS3 and PS Vita, PSP, PlayStation stores are shutting down this summer, which, that's a bummer for people who've been hanging on to those systems to revisit their old PS1 and PS2 classics. Hopefully Sony will get some form of it going on the PS5, but for now, here's where we're at. But to honor that, we ran a feature back in 2016 and it's been revived back on the new site now finally. It's the best games of the PlayStation Store, PS1 and PS2. So if you want to look at some great hits that you want to just get into the store now and buy, this is the feature for you to check out some of the best RPGs that those stores have to offer. So jump on them now. Our next feature is another entry in the one-player missions from Wes Iliff. This is the Case for Warriors games and the RPG fan, where he examines the Warriors or Muso style game and that crossover that happens into RPG world and why so many people not only love them, even though they're RPG adjacent, also why they make such a natural progression into RPGs. So, yeah, go check out this feature if you at all like that genre. I mean, I'm kind of itching for it myself after having tried out P5 Strikers. So yeah, check it out. And over in the reviews department, we have only a few reviews, so let's cover each of those individually. The first review comes from John Tucker of a little action RPG called Shattered: Tale of the Forgotten King. This game's got such a cool sense of style, but it falls real flat when it comes to the gameplay and the story, so if you want to see what John really thought about it, go give this review a read. Our next review comes from that delightfully positive and happy webcomic Cyanide and Happiness. Bob Richardson reviewed Cyanide and Happiness Freakpocalypse for us, and as you would expect, I guess, from a webcomic adaptation, it's a graphic adventure, and it looks and sounds and plays great, except the story just falls down the tubes and tanks the whole thing for Bob as far as the experience went. So give it a read. Maybe the story will land better for you. It might just not have been to Bob's tastes. So if there's something that you really want to get into, then I say check it out. But if that whole childish, crass humor is not for you, probably a game to pass on. And our last review comes from Joe Chop of Brigandine: The Legend of Runerzia, or Runerzia, however you want to pronounce it. That was previously released on Switch and is now on PS4, and Joe jumped into this awesome strategy RPG that unfortunately isn't so awesome. I mean, despite it looking like it should be super awesome, it kind of fell flat for Joe, so go read up and see why it's really not jiving on the PS4. And that is it. That's everything. Now we get to hop on over into episode 211 of Random Encounter. Listeners, hello, welcome back to yet another episode of Random Encounter. As always, for now, I am your host, Greg Delmage, here bringing you the latest, or whatever we just feel like talking about. I don't know, it's Random Encounter. What do you expect? We'd like to keep you on your toes. At any rate, as always, I am joined by my co-host, Jono Logan, over here on the mic.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Jono. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine. I put the deck furniture out yesterday.
Oh, that's a good feeling.
Still not quite warm enough to hang out there for a while, but you can go out, get a little bit of fresh air. Did a little bit of riding out there yesterday and today, so that was really nice.
Oh, very nice. We, my wife just rented a power washer last week, because we have one from our landlords, but I don't know what's going on with it. There's something in there blocking it. It's not getting power. Either way, it wasn't working, so we were like, screw it. And we rented one for a day that's much more powerful, so that was also super fun, and she completely pressure washed off the deck, so it's good for us to migrate out onto as soon as the weather starts turning around for us, and then we can start hosting COVID-friendly hangouts with friends.
That's nice. It's my understanding that pressure washers tend to be a little bit temperamental. My dad had one, and it broke after one season.
Oh, oof.
Yep, and then he got another one, and that broke after like 2 seasons. I don't know, maybe it's something with the sheer velocity of water that's firing through those things.
It's possible, or water sitting in it, something rusts out. I don't know. I'm going to try and pull it apart and see if just maybe something's in it clogging it or whatever. It's our landlords. They lent it to us one season, and it's just never come back to grab it because I guess they don't need it in their downtown apartment. So either way, it's been handy. We've been using it to keep their house clean, so they can't complain. And then aside from that, we're gearing up to buy a whole bunch of dirt and get our garden and stuff going.
I'm glad that you added that, because otherwise it'd just be weird if you were just buying a lot of dirt.
We're trying to make just fill in like our own little landmass and just expand out, make our house bigger of our own accord. No, it's going to be a very pricey investment, but it's going to be worth it to have some quality earth in our 6 planter boxes that we built last year. And then we're going to get some sod in there, have a nice little grass patch in the backyard as well as the front yard. So we just have that to lounge in the back if we feel like it. And it's going to be a good scene.
Lovely.
Mm-hmm. Either way, that was a fun little catch up, but we still have other people here. It's not just the two of us today. And we are joined by some familiar fellows from last episode, as well as Quinton O'Connor.
Hello, lovely people.
Caught you off guard, didn't I? You didn't think I was going to introduce you first, but I did.
I was shaken.
That's why it's random encounter.
And now I'm just realizing also how fitting that is with one topic today. Either way, and like I said, we have returning to the podcast for second times around for both of them. We have Brian Mackenzie.
Hey, good to be back.
It's good to have you back. And Nicholas Whaley.
Hello.
Thank you both for returning. I'm glad we didn't scare you away from last episode.
Our returning champions.
So yeah, folks, as always, we got RPGs that we've been playing. I'm still doing Bravely Default 2, so I don't have a lot of new, exciting stuff to talk about, but we are going to touch on that. Jono, I know you don't have a whole lot new going on as well, but these fellows have plenty to jaw about. And we're going to get started with Bravely Default 2 just to kind of dovetail from the last episode. And I have gotten as far as Wiswald now, so I'm getting a little further along. I've got to say, for people who may or may not have gotten there, I like that they committed to making Wiswald all Scottish.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that Bravely has always sort of done, which is they are recognizable accents throughout the world in places that are very obviously not, those accents.
Yeah, and it's the commitment to it, because like in Dragon Quest, they very much commit to regional dialects. They always have phonetically in the text, and that's cool. But I find there's a lot of games, once they get voiced, it's all just kind of all over the place. Like you could have like the token Scottish character, but nobody else from where they're from talks like them. So it's like, what? It just was a cool affectation for that character. So I thought it was great, because I was, again, worried that Elvis was just the token Scottish character. And then I saw like the flashbacks, or very early games, so this isn't spoiling anything, with his mentor, and she had a Scottish lilt as well. And I was like, okay, so does that mean like everybody? And once you got there, yeah, everybody in Wiswald is Scottish. And like, that's just a great detail. I love it, and I'm glad they put that in. And speaking as someone who's really been enjoying watching Outlander lately with the wife, it's been it's nice to have more Scottish pouring into my ears, and that they use a lot of proper like Scottish phrases and stuff too. Like the localization is just so good, and those little touches just make the world that much more interesting. So I'm hoping later on down the line we get to go to wherever Adele's from, and everyone's got that. Even Savalon, like they had a lot of a regional dialect there too. It's an accent. It's great.
I agree. It's just one of those touches that makes localization even better.
Absolutely. It brings the world that much more to life. Briefly, before we get into some of the later points in the game, Brian was saying in the pre-show that based on last episode, we convinced you to get into it. How's that been for you, Brian?
Yeah, you guys talked me into it. I really like it. I like it better than the original, which I didn't stick with for particularly long.
Right.
But I think the characters grabbed me a lot quicker in this one, and I like the story better too. Particularly Elvis. I think Elvis is my favorite so far, and I was almost disappointed when he came with his black mage outfit instead of like a freelancer outfit like the rest, but then I realized I could just change him into a freelancer, and I love his freelancer outfit.
Yeah, he's pretty swank.
I agree with you. I really like that point, though, that I felt it gave him, like, almost a bit of a past. Like, he's had it for a while. So, obviously, he's been hunting for these things. So, when you meet him, yeah, he'd be equipped with the Black Mage asterisk, because he'd be, researching it, learning as best he could. I thought it gave him a nice little bit of, like, existence before the game started.
Yeah, I thought it was a good way to introduce the idea of asterisks, too, where they just show you a guy that has one, and he joins your party, and he's different than the rest of you. So that made sense to me, too, from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. And then got Hungry Adele along for the ride.
But yeah, it's been a really good experience so far. I just unlocked the Beastmaster, so I'm not too far into it yet. But I do like the Beastmaster class. It's fun running around catching monsters. But the best part of the game so far to me has actually just been the boss fights. I feel like in a lot of RPGs, the boss fights end up kind of dull, where they're just kind of HP sponges that you don't have to change your strategy too much for. You really have to think in Bravely Default 2, because if your teammates get low at all, you always have to be afraid of, oh man, the boss is just gonna go into turn debt and hit me 4 times and wipe everyone. It's not something you have to worry about in other RPGs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're right, yeah. And I mentioned about a bit last episode, too, that, there's a lot more strategy in this game. I mean, the other 2 Bravely games had that as well, but it's just nice coming back to it and seeing them kind of still trying to shake up the traditional nostalgic RPG formula that the game is aping and trying to build upon. That you're right, it is, like, they're definitely still damage sponges, that I won't lie about, because I've been playing the game on casual just to get through it for capture purposes, and even then, even though I have enemies running away from me, still some of the fights are pretty tough to get through. I've barely scraped by. I got through the recent one, which I think was for the Archer Asterix, and they did a big attack, and I had luckily Seth set up as a freelancer and just happened to get that stand ground and had left with 1%. And his alternate job was a completely mastered white mage, so at least was able to then bring everybody back, but like just scraped by for that one and then was able to finish it off. But it was dicey. And again, I'm on casual and I thought I was more than enough of a level to get into it. But you really got to think it through.
Yeah, that was my first wake-up call was, I forget if it was the second or the third boss of the game, where the fight was going really well. I was like, great, I'm going to finish this up in the next 2 turns. And he goes 4 turns in a row, knocks out 3 party members, and I was like, oh no. Fortunately, I was able to stabilize from there, but it just doesn't happen much in other RPGs.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the smartest thing about the entire system is that enemies can brave and default as well. Like, it only makes sense, but in some games it would have been just your party. This is just a party-based mechanic. But nope, your enemies can as well, and if they feel like it, they can really take you out in one move.
Is that the same in Jono, is that the same in Octopath since you've played it? Like, and for anyone else here who has, I haven't actually done a polling of who here has played Octopath. That's not me, because I have not. Can the enemies break boost in that as well?
Holy crap, I actually don't. I can't remember. It's been such a long time since I played that game.
I don't believe they can. Sometimes they just go more than once in a rotation, but I don't think they ever do the spend BP on going multiple times like you can.
Yeah, they kind of have their own...
Yeah, this is a Bravely thing.
They kind of have their own version of that, I think. Like what was just being said, sometimes they can kind of go twice in a row. They can catch you off guard.
More move specific?
Yeah, they can catch you off guard in some different ways, especially like the optional fights, but... I think Bravely's pretty unique in that you have this setup, this really cool setup, and then, the boss fights are like, hey, so do I. You're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say the other...
Especially when you... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I think the other difference between Bravely's system and Octopath's is in Octopath, you can see the turn order. So it's never a surprise when the boss goes 2 or 3 times in a row. You can see it in advance. In Bravely, you can see how many... points they have stocked up, but you don't know when they're going to use them or when they're going to go into debt.
You keep expecting it to happen.
That's true. Yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah, because you see that little exclamation warning come up, which I like that they you don't see their turn charge bar like you would in a traditional JRPG, but you get a heads up that, like, something's coming. What are they going to do? And yeah, they could just be like, okay, we're going to go into turn debt, blow it all, and wreck ya. Or I've been saving up all my BP, and then they just do, like, a stat buff, and you're like, oh, okay. And you're not quite sure what's going to happen.
Later in the game, no real spoilers, but you start fighting, no characters, but you start fighting basically parties, just like yours. So it's not just like random monsters. It's like some pretty strong bosses that are in like groups of 3 or 4. And at that point, they start to use Brave and defaulting a lot like you do. And it makes it extremely hard to get through some of the very late game bosses, because they can effectively wipe you out in a turn, especially if they have like buffs that give them Brave points as a counter to whatever you do.
Yep. Yeah, I hated that with one particular fight recently, that they kept getting Brave whenever I would default. I'm like, eh.
It gets to extraordinarily ridiculous levels later in the game. And I mean, I don't find it frustrating, because at that level of the game, your party are just beasts. You have half of them, you would probably have half of the jobs mastered at that point, because for both characters, presumably, I don't know how you guys build your parties. I tend to go 2 magic users, 2 fighters.
Me too.
I kind of have been.
Yeah. So, I mean, the structure of my party was, the structure of my party in the end was, I made Seth my general physical damage dealer. I made Adele my critical hit specialist. At first I had Elvis as my black mage, and then I realized I wasn't really using a whole lot of magic, at least not attack magic, and I switched him over to my buff guy. So he was buffing everyone, and Gloria, I just tossed her on. I was using her as a healer, and then I realized I don't want her as a healer. You know what I want her as? I want her as a monster. I want her as a tank. So I guess, Greg, you wouldn't have this job yet. The job of the gentleman that's blocking the path in Wiswald?
Yeah, I've encountered him, and I figured that's a job, and yep, I can see how that would be tanky.
Yeah, he's the shield bearer job, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You can equip 2 shields and just become a tank and block other things. So Gloria became my tank, and that party was working pretty well for me throughout the entire game. And then I would just change things up if I fought against an enemy that didn't really that just plowed through those defenses with no difficulty.
As sometimes there's the odd ability that can, just regardless of what's up. Quinton, you also recently beat the game, and then you were kind of cycling back through. How's that been? How's the experience been for you so far? Like diving back into it with the foreknowledge.
Yeah, I love it. That's one of the things, if I really enjoy, especially an RPG, but really any game, but mostly RPGs. If I enjoy it enough the first time around, I tend to dive straight back into the water with it, which is terrible for my backlog. But I do it anyway. And with Bravely Default 2, it's richly rewarding, I think.
Does it have like a New Game Plus or anything?
Yeah, it certainly does. And you also... It's not only the features that you get to carry with you. Don't want to spoil it too much, because at least in my book, like, New Game Pluses are always super exciting to find out on your own.
Yes.
But it's not just that, but it's just because the game is so intricate, especially with its boss fights, and like Jono was saying, later on when you're fighting true, tried and true parties of enemies, if you go back to that stuff with the foreknowledge and kind of like the flashbacks of your own, of, oh, that didn't work. Oh, no, that didn't work. And then remembering what it was that finally, like, say, Monk pressure point saved my hide a few times, going into it with that knowledge and just kind of, I don't want to say tearing the boss fights to shreds, because it's still Bravely Default 2. But just ripping it apart a lot better than you did the first time. I love it. And it's the JRPG staple. Once you figure it out and you've grinded it out a little bit, you become God, all that jazz, and you have a blast with it. But so I'm taking my sweet time this time, and I'm getting sucked into the card game more than anything. It's for those,
which I haven't dabbled with yet.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, the card game is called B&D. It doesn't stand for Bravely Default. It stands for Bind and Divide, because that's just a very cheeky thing that Bravely Default would do. It's quite fun, although I should note that I tend to get sucked into every card game and every RPG, so there's kind of an asterisk attached to... Oh, that's a terrible pun. I didn't mean that. There's an asterisk, no pun intended, attached to that, because I'll encounter people all the time that are like, oh, I didn't like that RPG card game. I don't know what is it about them, but I just get sucked into them. I was a fiend with like Xenocard and Xenosaga Episode 1, all that stuff.
I even like the card game in Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah, Triple Triad.
I mean, to be fair, the card game in Final Fantasy VIII is the best part of Final Fantasy VIII.
It's great. I'm sucked into it in FF14 too. Yeah. So whatever it is, whenever it's an RPG, odds are I'm going to end up at these these card game tables, the game within the game. But anyway, yeah, Bind and Divide. It's like Bravely Default's core mechanics are put into a blender with Gwent. I feel like you're trying to control as much territory as possible. By the end of the game goes pretty swiftly. There's, I want to say, 6 turns total between you and your opponent because there's 6 cards. You've got monster cards, job class cards, character cards. You're running around and you're challenging NPCs throughout the game, a la Triple Triad, Tetramaster, the works. So maybe I'm not replaying Bravely Default. Okay, maybe I'm playing Bind and Divide for the first time, but that's okay. I'm dividing my time between that and FF14, and wouldn't you know, I'm addicted to Triple Triad there. So it's funny old life.
Yep. For those who haven't played it yet and just want an idea of what it is, so you have there's a 5x5 grid, and it's essentially a tile capturing game. So your job is to put down cards, and each card shows, a different arrangement of tiles that you can capture. So you might have like your main tile you can capture, and then you can capture one to your left as well. And the point of the game is to just capture as much territory as possible. So when you place down your card, you can either capture tiles in blue, or you can erase your opponent's tiles, leaving it as an unclaimed tile. And the point is just to have more than your enemy by the end of it. There are like dozens of special effects that can come into play that reduce card effectiveness, that can enhance card effectiveness. It's the best kind of card game, which it's really, really simple to learn, and it's really, really hard to master.
They even say that in the dialogue. Elvis says that, and it's so true.
Yeah, I mean, the game is clearly inspired by some... Well, I guess Final Fantasy VIII would be the most obvious, most popular card game in RPG Final Fantasy history. It's similar, it's not the same. But if you do like Triple Triad, chances are you're going to like B&D. And there are some decent little rewards if you are able to get to S rank and collect every single card in the game.
There are. Yeah, there are indeed.
Well, then I need to get myself back to the gambling hall.
One word of warning for you and I guess anyone who is still in the early parts of the game. When you unlock the game, you can't get past B rank until story events later on. But so don't bother going around looking for bang your head against the wall. You're not going to be able to progress. You're only going to be able to collect points at that point, but you're not going to be able to progress in rank until later.
Good to know. Brian and I will make note, and I guess anyone else listening. Well, cool. I'm glad we made a convert out of you, Brian. And we'll see if Nicholas revisits it. Well, speaking of Nicholas, you were promised last episode an opportunity to go ham on Yakuza 5. Have you wrapped it up now?
So I finished the story, and I had originally intended to 100% it.
Yes, promises were made, and
I encountered what I consider to be essentially a broken minigame. so the pool in I guess the remaster, something happened with the port when it came over to PS4. There's some sort of like sensitivity issue, and the cue ball will just go wherever it wants. So no matter where you aim, like it's a mess. It's just a total mess. And 3 of the things you have to do to 100% the game are beat, the computer opponent at an advanced level. So you just end up frustrated. I spent like 8 hours just on pool, and it's just so irritating to
just poorly optimized.
Yeah, constantly messing up, and then you watch the computer opponent, and they just instantly aim, instantly hit, and pull off moves that are just unrealistic. So I just got to the point where I said, well, I really enjoyed Yakuza 5, and I really enjoyed the story, and I wanted to 100% it, but I guess it's going to have to be Yakuza 6 because the pool is it's absolutely broken.
That sucks. Like it should be. Anyways, but did you run into that, Jono?
I honestly don't remember. I don't remember having too much trouble with the pool minigame in Yakuza 5. I remember not enjoying it like I did. I think that Yakuza 5, many of the minigames, like you remember back in, I don't know, the PlayStation era where like minigame compilations would be released, or like there'd be entire games based on a single thing, like a poker game or something like that. That's Yakuza in a nutshell. It's just all of those minigames just shoved into one, and they're all really well developed. I agree with you that the pool minigame doesn't really work fantastic. I don't remember it being a nightmare, though. Interesting. Maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it's mileage may vary.
Well, what did you play it on again, Jono? Were you also on PS? Was it PS4? Sorry, you said, Nicholas?
Yeah, the remaster collection that they did.
Right. Did you do it on PC or you're a PS4?
No, I was on PS4 as well. I could boot it up tonight and check.
Some sort of issue with like the right stick sensitivity where when you draw back, honestly, I'm not sure why they designed it this way. Like, the right stick should control the power of the shot, but if you are not straight on when you release, like, when you kind of flick the controller, it's going to go slightly in one direction or another. It's not going to be perfect back to neutral position. And it will just tilt the direction your cue ball goes in. And like, it'll show the trajectory of where you're trying to aim. And sometimes it's so messed up that it won't even follow the trajectory. It'll miss the ball entirely.
It's interesting because when I type in Yakuza 5 pool into Google, the most common word to come up is the word this. Sorry, you're going to have to use a Chocobo theme there, Greg. Yeah, people, you are not alone in this one. That people do not enjoy the pool minigame in Yakuza 5. Whew.
And then, Yakuza 6, there is no pool. So immediately I was like, oh, well, here we go.
Yeah, there's no pool, but there's also, I'm so sad that they've lost bowling.
Yeah, bowling was fun.
I love bowling. It's my favorite, I guess, sport to do. And I was really good at it in Yakuza games. And then I got into later games, and they replaced the bowling alley with a gym, and then a VR playroom. And I'm like, I just want to play. I just want to bowl and win a chicken.
I don't want to work out. I just want to bowl.
I've done the gym some, and it feels kind of pseudo pointless. Like, I know you get experience for it, but like, it's not very much.
Oh, you mean in 6?
Yeah.
The rewards tend to be items.
Oh, interesting. I can't recall if I've gotten any items from it yet.
I think so, unless I am very much mistaken. Yeah, you can. There are medicines available that you can get once you max it out, I believe.
Okay.
That will help you level your guys up.
And now,
also, I think it's a pure product placement thing. Realistically speaking, as I understand it, it was an actual gym.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that Solosi would know off the top of his head, but I do not.
That's fair.
I will say Dragon Engine is just such a beautiful upgrade, in my opinion. I love being able to just walk into a shop and there's like no cutaway or anything. I like the way the encounters are handled more. And I like the way the checklist, the challenges are handled. Well, I guess there's still a lot of like kind of just boring. Like I sat for like an hour just drinking sodas out of a vending machine yesterday.
In game, I hope.
No, in real life. No, in the game.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Rise Up is an actual Japanese gym, and all of their like publicity and shots and things like that are exactly what Kiryu does with he's like slumping it and then he like gets up and he's like listening. So it was a full-blown product placement.
Yeah, I feel like as the series gained more clout, they got more and more just like real-life products in the game.
True, and there's certain, like, I mean, I remember when the Highball Tavern was replaced by a gelato in 3, and I was actually angry. I was like, how dare you? That was one of my favorite restaurants in Kamurocho, and you have replaced it with a gelato place. Where am I supposed to get drunk now?
Oh, there's still plenty of places.
Random side thought there. It sounded like what you almost misspoke and said gelatery, and I'm like, that's a lottery I can get behind, where you just get like random ice cream.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
A gelatery. Yeah. Gelatery, I like it.
One thing we were also promised to talk about was a specific section of the game, which you were asking about last time, John.
Oh, baby. Yes, please. Nicholas, tell us about Haruka's section of the game.
Oh, like the dance battles and everything?
Yeah, we've talked a bit about it, and it was one of Jono's favorite highlights from the game. How was it for you?
I really love it. I just love it.
It's definitely a fascinating break from the like usual walk around the street and some dude picks a fight with you and you beat him up. I think I mentioned it last episode, but it made me realize that I would certainly play a game where you just have unusual jobs. Like it can be built in the same engine, and it's just like, okay, what's it like in the life of an accountant? What's it like in the life of a real estate agent? As long as it's presented in this clever narrative.
I think what really I remember playing it, and I was when I was playing through the series, I was very, very careful to avoid all spoilers. I just didn't want to know. I wanted to be taken by surprise, and the Yakuza series does that regularly, and not just by Majima. And I was not expecting to end up in a rhythm minigame, let alone a full-blown idol simulator, where my favorite city in Yakuza has suddenly become an entertainment town full of dance battles and opportunities to get up on stage and sing and dance. It blew my mind when I was playing it. I just absolutely love it.
Yeah, I loved going to the office, the dance studio, and just scrolling through the list like, let me go do a handshake meet and greet, and then I'll go do like a mini concert. Yeah, I mean,
Haruka has always been actually one of my favorite Yakuza characters. I've always been really disappointed that she has never been a playable character on a more expansive, in a more expansive way than Yakuza 5. Also, I mean, Kazuma Kiryu is her father. Surely at some point he taught her how to kill a man with a bicycle. I think I just stole that line from one of my reviews. But I guess it was because I was a performer in my 20s, and like growing up I would just be doing theater and that kind of stuff. It wasn't just that I connected to this section because it was awesome. It was also because the repetition of over and over and over again, rehearsing a song and then having to go and do these little like mini concerts where you perform the same song over and over and over again. I related to it. and I thought it was funny. It started getting funny at some point. It was just that she's stuck in this Groundhog Day-esque scenario where she has to keep going to bookstores and singing so much more over and over and over again. I just love it so much. And her 3 songs are unbelievably catchy tunes.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I get where you're coming from. Like I imagine like a comedian, if they are famous for one particular bit, they want to try new stuff, but everyone's just like, hey, do the line, say the funny thing. And like, I'm sure after a while, it's just utterly exhausting.
Yeah. It is. Also, there is a very unique comedian minigame when you are playing as Haruka.
Oh yeah.
That is a absolute nightmare. I guess they made it easier in the remaster, but like in the original, it's a game of, it's timing. It's the secret of comedy is timing, and unfortunately, you don't know Japanese for the most part, so your timing is based on a language you don't know, which makes the minigame very difficult to chime in at the right times.
Oh yeah, they must have made it easier, because now it's like you have a limited amount of time to select the right thing. Like, it's not really affected by what they're saying.
Yeah, I didn't 100%. I don't really 100% Yakuza games. I mine it for as much story content as I possibly can, so I always complete all of the sub-stories. I always beat the secret last bosses, but I don't tend to max out the mini games. Though some of them I do, because some of them are really worth it.
Yeah, and we've talked about this. It's worth it if you find the content fun, or if it serves the story. But otherwise, there's been other games where you're just like, I don't want to just be like just ticking little boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, either way, Yakuza 6. Seven's Like a Dragon, or 6. I'm confused.
7's Like a Dragon.
Okay.
Yakuza 6 is Yakuza 6 Song of Life.
Gotcha. So yeah, you got another fun ride ahead of you, and I'm sure we'll have you back to talk about that once you get through it as well.
Yeah, you have 6, and then have you played Judgment yet?
I have not played Judgment yet.
Earlier today, rumors have abound that a sequel to Judgment is now in development called Lost Judgment.
See, that would make sense, because they're doing the... I do not want to call it a remaster, because like they're updating it for PS5, but also apparently from what I heard, it is not a free upgrade. Like, you're going to have to purchase it again. But I mean, if they're going through the effort to update it, maybe it does make sense that a new one is coming our way.
Judgment was a cool game. I think I talked about it on the show. I imagine I would have. It was a Yakuza game, basically. Yeah, it's if anyone out there likes crime dramas or Ace Attorney, and also the traditional Yakuza beat 'em up fighting system. It's a good game to play.
Either way, there's lots of Yakuza, and like it's one of our. It still gets a lot of chatter on our YouTube channel, your Yakuza review, and people just being like, "I'm just getting into it for the first time." And it's like, that's a slippery slope. Have fun, and yeah, it's one of the it's up there where I'm like, okay, enough people said good things. I probably would like it if I tried it, but it's a rabbit hole I'm not ready to go in, considering backlog and other stuff I want to play and the life I need to lead. So I've largely avoided it for now. But the River City Ransom lover in me seems like this is like the next logical progression.
Huh. Yeah, right now, every single time Caitlin or I talk about Yakuza Like a Dragon, Alana starts sweating because she has it, and she's like, I really want to start it, but I know that I shouldn't. Speaking of that, Caitlin just reviewed the PlayStation 5 remastered version of Yakuza Like a Dragon. It's a great review. Spoiler alert, the Tojo clan is in crisis again. So if anyone is thinking about it, so if anyone's thinking about Like a Dragon, playing Like a Dragon, and they need one last push, I think Caitlin's review will do the trick. because like Caitlin is, it is extremely articulate and well thought out, and she gives you lots of wonderful points why the game works, and she also goes into why it doesn't sometimes. Give it a read. I think you'll like it.
Yeah.
Both the review and the game.
Yeah. I'll definitely be pointing it out, I'm sure, pre-show as well. Speaking back of card games and such, Quinton, you briefly touched on your addiction to the Final Fantasy XIV Triple Triad. I know we've got a Stormblood episode in the works at some point with Retro Encounter, possibly. But yeah, when did you start up Final Fantasy XIV? Because you were saying you've just gotten through Stormblood.
Oh, let's see. When did I start? I want to say about a year ago now. It was definitely slow going for a while, but not slow going, so to speak. I got through A Realm Reborn, and I got through the patches, and I came to just like the cusp of Heaven's Ward, and I could sense that it was going to be epic. I knew going into it that everyone told me Heaven's Ward rocks. I was starting to see the foundations there, so I did what I do sometimes, which is weird, and I put it aside for like 4 months at that point, because I was like, oh, it's going to be like a great season of my favorite TV show, so let me go play a couple other things first. So that's why it's been as long as it has been. Jumped back in through Heaven's Ward, tore through the post-launch patch content, which is just fabulous. Got to Stormblood. I've heard from people in the past, maybe Stormblood not the best. Okay, I'm sort of expecting like a clear step downward. I actually think it's almost as good. I've loved the story. I love the setting. I love, just exploring new areas, and FF14 is just its own reward for me. And there's such a richness of new locations across, I don't want to get too technically spoilery with this on this particular podcast, just in case, but between, like, we'll say multiple parts of the world that you go to. And so now I'm going through, I'm almost done with the post-Stormblood patch content, which, again, really enjoying. Got sidetracked by Triple Triad, predictably. They added something, I want to say it's fairly recent, where it's like every couple of hours at the Gold Saucer, there are like these open, not like the tournament, like the big tournament stuff, but like these sort of like you go into the card hall with up to 7 other people. If 7 other people aren't there, you get kind of filled out with some of the NPCs. And I just, for whatever reason, I've gotten so glued to it that like every time I log in, I'm like, I have to see, is it time for one of those? Oh, it is. And I go through there. The rewards are fine, but it's just, I love it. I love Triple Triad. I always love RPG card games. I don't know why. Sometimes they're not good. Sometimes they are. But yeah, so I'm really excited to see to see Shadowbringers soon, because everyone who says Heaven's Ward is good seems to kind of end the sentence with, and Shadowbringers, let me tell you. So, yeah, it's been a relatively recent journey for me, Final Fantasy XIV, and I just shout out to anyone who happens to be listening, who's among the, 1.5 million people who said you really need to play FF14, Quinton. I know you don't do MMOs, but you need to do this anyway. Because, woo, I love it.
Yeah, that's what we keep hearing.
It's going to be one of these episodes where Greg and I are just like, oh no.
We
have to play Final Fantasy XIV. Oh no.
How many more copywriting projects can I take on to pay for my new addiction to Final Fantasy XIV?
Rest in peace.
No. Yeah.
Well,
if it helps, the time commitment.
Yeah, I firmly believe that Final Fantasy XIV Triple Triad is the definitive version of Triple Triad. I think it's better than Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I love just, there's such a thrill to me and I'm sure this applies to a lot of us, and a lot of FF14 players of I see my big thing at the Gold Saucer, this ties right into that, I think, is I'm so close to 1 million GP because I want that Cloud Strife card. And what am I going to do with my life after I get the Cloud Strife card? I don't know. I don't care. I just really want it. I love Final Fantasy VII.
Win Triple Triad.
Yes, win Triple Triad with the Cloud card, and then my life is complete. I mean, it's everything I need.
Is the Cloud Strife card the equivalent of a Black Lotus?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I've never thought about it. I've just been thinking about the
it's
Cloud
probably not
Strife card
game-breaking,
itself.
but-
Yeah, no, I want the card. I don't. I haven't given it any deep thought whatsoever. I just need it, Greg. I need it.
I need to collect the things. Brian, you've been playing Final Fantasy XIV in the past or currently, or?
Yeah. I'm just got to the Heaven's Word patches, and I'm looking forward to Stormblood. But I've been taking a little break because I got into it a couple months ago, and I was playing it so much that I was not playing anything else. And I was like, well, there's other games that I want to play, so that means I need to cut back on Final Fantasy XIV time.
That's kind of my concern with it.
But it is good. It's definitely worth playing,
Yeah.
especially at least for the free trial. Goes up to Heaven's Word now.
Yeah, I've consistently heard, and Jono can vouch for this as well, that it's like people consistently say that it's some of the best Final Fantasy writing, let alone game writing.
Yeah, whenever Caitlin comes onto the podcast to talk about Final Fantasy XIV, I'm just like, oh no.
And you see how
This
much of the
is
staff
gonna-
are playing it, and
This is going to be, I could be having fun right now in this giant fantasy world. But nope, I can't because I have games to review.
exactly. Once we retire from RPG Fan,
That's your
our twilight years.
Yeah, that's your driving off into the sunset. So now what do? We play FF14 until we pass on from this wave of existence.
But we could play Final Fantasy 18, but no, we want to go back to 14, see what we missed.
14's where it's at.
Hey, I wonder when and if, but the next installment will be for the next MMO FF.
I don't know. They seem to be very dedicated to continuing the story of Final Fantasy XIV. I don't think they're going to stop anytime soon. I think they might just keep upgrading it.
Yeah, because WoW, it's been working for WoW, so.
Yeah, they've really struck gold with 14 in terms of its fan base. I mean, I guess if they wanted to try to get new players in, they might want to try to, announce a new Final Fantasy, but I think they're pretty hard at work at 16 at the moment. So, and God knows when we'll get that.
Yeah, but that is going to be a single-player experience, so. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it might be there when we're in our 80s. Hooray!
I mean, I'm not looking forward to the day when this happens, but eventually all MMOs come to an end. So,
when the apocalypse
Yeah.
happens, there won't be any servers anyways.
oh, that's a cheery thought.
We were joking about that the other day because Gwen was, now that she's growing up and coming onto the cusp of her teen years and such, at age 10 going on 11 soon, she's in her tweens and it's good times, but she's starting to have concerns that she's going to change as a human. She's worried, she's like, well, what if I change and I'm not who I want to stay who I am because I like who I am and stuff. And we're like, well, that's kind of up to you. You're fine. And she's like, what do I want to do when I grow up? And will that change me? This, that, whatever. And we're like, honestly, you're still so young. You got so many options. You'll be fine. And for all we know, you'll go to school or maybe you'll get a job or by the time you're done high school, you might be just fighting zombies for all we know. So who knows what the world has in store.
I thought you were going somewhere real dark with that and being like, honey, you can be anything you want when you grow up if there's still a world. I wouldn't worry too bad about it. We're heading right to the apocalypse.
Yeah, we try not to go that heavy, but there's definitely a fear there sometimes with that sort of, what are we leaving behind? But just kind of keep doing our best. But before we go down that dark spiral, we'll shift it back over to talking about Brian here, because a game that came out a while ago, I got to play it for Capture. Nathan Lee was our reviewer on it, was P5 Strikers. And Persona 5 Strikers is quite rad. It's I think Nathan hit the nail on the head in his review by saying, even though it's structured as a Muso game, it really doesn't feel like a traditional Muso game. Even though you've still got hordes of enemies, it's still a really good mix, as I understand it, of Persona. For me, this is my very first Persona game I've ever played. I've never played any of the vanilla Persona games in any entry whatsoever. So this was my first introduction to the world, the style of the game, I guess, and the characters and everything. And boy, that game has style. And I was pulled right in. I didn't feel like I was missing anything from Persona 5. I was able to get up to speed with kind of the world and the expectations. and the gameplay's super cool. I have not beaten it, though. I've only just gotten out of the city and was heading on my first road trip. Brian, whereabouts are you at?
We are at the exact same place.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I did play Persona 5. That was maybe my favorite game of last year. Certainly top 3 was Persona 5 Royal. But my expectations for Persona 5 Strikers were relatively low. I've played a bunch of Musou games, and usually they don't keep me entertained for too much more than 5 or 6 hours. But I was very pleasantly surprised with Strikers. It really doesn't feel like a Musou game very much at all.
No, it's like so, like just the way the skills, the work, and the breakdown of the combat, the fact that you can use the world in some interesting ways to like kind of do cool stealth hits and get the jump on the enemy. Like that's something. I haven't played a lot of Musou games, so I'm not as versed that those are options. But like the couple demos I've done of like high roll warriors and stuff like that has given me a sense of it. That usually you just kind of charge into battle and that's about it, and you get cool moves.
Yeah, and it's very different in this one because if you do that, you'll lose. Frankly, in most Musou games, I basically never get a game over on normal difficulty. I have had a couple in Strikers already.
Yeah, it can be pretty punishing, especially if you pick the wrong enemy to take on. Like the parties can definitely overwhelm you, and some of like the more smaller, mild enemy boss kind of things. They're not bosses, but they're also stronger than the regulars. Yeah, they can really catch you off guard, especially if they start like throwing status ailments and stuff at you. I've had some close shaves, and I think died a couple times to grab capture.
Yeah, it's definitely harder than most Musou games on normal, and I think they did a very good job of translating the mechanics of Persona 5 to an action game, where we still have our all-out attacks and our one more system, but it's just in real time in an action game, and that's awesome.
Yeah, it definitely had a bit of a learning curve with trying to like keep on top of those, not quite quick time events, but just, you have to really be aware of what's going on. And then also it's definitely a game that benefits from, get good and get those really smooth transitions to get someone in who can take out the specific enemy, or if someone's running a little weak, you bring them out so that way hopefully they can take less punishment, because usually it seems they focus on the character you're controlling, of course. So, yeah, there's a lot of... there's a big learning curve where I felt real bad at it at first and really clunky trying to play it, but familiarity definitely made it a lot smoother in experience.
Yeah, that was my experience too, and my only complaint with the combat so far is that I feel like the 3 characters you're not controlling are sometimes kind of dumb. I remember on the first boss fight...
True.
When she switches to the different form where she has the big rolling attack.
Yes.
I had figured out how to dodge that, but the AI had not. So I was very quickly the only one left alive, even though I hadn't got hit by anything because they were just getting one shot by the attack they weren't dodging.
Yeah, that was a hefty one. But it's neat, and yeah, the story was engaging. So far that I've played of it, like I do want to go back to it at some point, actually, because again, there's games I get sometimes that I'm like, whatever, I'm not invested. Like I might dabble in Atelier Ryza 2 again, but we just had that for capture, and I got to play it a bit, and I was like, this is cool and whatnot, but no one's really grabbing me. This seems like a really convoluted big system, whatever. But Persona 5, I was like, I'm invested in this gameplay. The characters are actually really compelling. The voice acting is like top notch. And the story, they're like the way they interact with each other is just great. Like they just got the vibe so right. And again, I heard everybody talking about how great Persona 5 was stylistically in terms of its menus and then the music and everything else. In this game, those menus are flashy as heck. Although sometimes I wish I just didn't need a whole cool animation sequence to get to a menu. I just want to save and exit the game. But it looks real good when it's doing it.
Yeah, Persona 5 also had some of the best menus I've ever seen in a game. But I agree with you that the animations, well, very cool, can be a little much for just regular menu navigation.
Yeah, sometimes you're like, oh, that's really cool and impressive. And other times they're like, just let me go equip something.
So I have a question, and it's a little funny that I'm asking this just because when Strikers was en route before it was out, I covered sort of a little press event that we had, so I had a little bit more insight than some. For a while, I had a little bit more insight. I did a preview article, but I haven't actually played the game yet. And when I was doing the preview article, I remember like everything that I was thinking about while I was typing it, I was starting to get this feeling like, hey, maybe this isn't going to be like a traditional Muso game, like everybody's talking about now. Maybe this is really going to be like Persona 5, but an action game. But I didn't have enough context yet to know that definitively. And now it's out. And, like you fine folks were just talking about, that's really what it feels like is action Persona 5. So speaking as someone who hasn't played it yet, I'm just curious about one aspect. Do you get to go like travel around like freeform, kind of walk around parts of Tokyo like in Persona 5, or do you not get to do that?
You do, at least in the beginning section. The beginning section of the game takes place in the exact same place Persona 5 did, and it has the same environments that you get to walk around, so it's going to feel very familiar if you played Persona 5.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I mean, I am actually a fan of Muso games to a point. I do kind of get tired of them a little bit faster than folks who would say that they're definitely, hardcore Muso fans. But I think this is exactly what Persona 5 needed for a sequel, to shake things up, but to still have those fundamentals. I'm excited to play it when I do get around to it. It sounds great.
Nicholas, have you done any Persona games? Or are you like me and a complete noob?
I have done Persona 4 and vanilla Persona 5, and some of like the original Persona on PS1, back when it was a little bit of a rougher around the edges kind of game.
Does this appeal to you at all, though?
Well, I played. I know the Japanese PSN had a demo for Strikers. And I'm actually a huge Muso fan myself, so it was kind of like bread and butter, like sure thing. And I really enjoyed the demo. I just haven't had a chance to get around to playing it yet. It's definitely on my list, but the backlog is a beast right now.
Oh yes, that is a good bad problem to have for most digital gamers these days. All those sales, all the things you're like, maybe it won't go on sale again, but every single time I'm like, Darkest Dungeon's on sale again, and it's okay. Anyways, it's a super cool game. Like, I mean, again, so a few questions from people even on our YouTube channel back with the review of just like, can you just jump into it? How is it? And yeah, like I said earlier, I didn't need any context, and I still got so much out of it and got invested immediately in this world. I was going to ask Brian, character-wise, they're all pretty much the same. Not much, I guess, changes from P5 to P5 Strikers. Like, everyone's more or less the same with their experiences, who they are. Because they have come back from... Some of them went to school and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, so it is after... I think it was their first year of college, right? That they're coming back from. The characters are largely all the same. The only major difference, and this is just the nature of there not being a save carryover, is most people playing, I imagine, would be in a relationship with a character in the game. And obviously that's gone because there's no save carryover, which was a little disappointing, but that's a minor thing.
No, that's what happens when kids go off to college.
Yeah, just they don't address it, that's the thing. But, so who's your favorite character, I guess, to play as in Strikers? Because, again, everyone has a slightly different play style. And pluses and minuses for how they work out in combat.
Yeah, I really like playing as Yusuke. I like his counter system, and his combos are really flashy, so he's been my favorite to play as so far.
Yeah, he does have a neat, tricky play style. Because I was trying to get through it quick, I'm like, I know this is one I would need to spend more time on, whereas everybody else can pretty much straight up brawl. And so I left him a bit to the side. But yeah, his counter system's kind of neat. And, I'm blanking on it right now. I keep wanting to call her Eva, because that's basically, she reminds me of Eva from Whaley.
Oh, the
But the little AI.
I can't think of her name either.
Sophie.
She's the new one. Yeah, Sophie.
Yeah, Sophie. She has a really interesting mechanic, too, that I thought was kind of neat. And I love that she fights with a yo-yo.
Yeah, she was cool. Her mechanic's kind of tricky. I had a lot of trouble with that one, but it is cool.
It is, and she can be really fragile if you don't get it. You can get mauled real quick with her. But it's again another one. I'm like, if I invest in this, it could be really neat.
Yeah, and then this one isn't a playstyle thing so much as an animation thing, but I really love Morgana turning into the car and Makoto riding the motorcycle in combat. I think that's awesome.
It is very cool. I really like, I'm blanking on her name, but she uses the axe.
Haru,
thank you, yeah. And also she gets more screen time in this game, too, as I understand what Nathan was saying. She
I was really happy with that, because I always felt like she was interesting but underdeveloped in Persona 5, and I was like, oh, great, she's just here at the beginning of the game. We're going to have her the whole time in this one. So I was pleased with that.
Yeah, and it seems like both where you and I are at, she's going to be a bit more of a focal point in that part of the story, too, which is neat. So, but yeah, I like her because she's just like this dainty little thing that looks like she likes high tea and crochets and stuff. But then she has this giant axe that's as big as her when she turns into her, not persona form, but like whatever their alternate forms are when they go into the digital world. And, which this whole game gives me a whole Digimon vibe. Like, I'm just thinking of the Digimon series back when they would go into, like, the Ultimate Universe, and it makes me think of that.
Yeah, big axe and a grenade launcher.
Yeah, it's neat. And I played a lot as Joker just because he's pretty OP and he's just easy to grasp. But, yeah, it's a super cool game. If anyone is thinking of it, if you're, like, a Persona fan, like, yeah, Nicholas, if you like the demo, you'll definitely be digging on how it's filled out. It's just super cool. John, I don't think you've done a lot of Persona-ing. Didn't you?
I have done no Persona-ing,
okay.
although Persona 5 Royal is... No, Persona 5 Royal is on my list of games that I really, really, really want to play, but I wouldn't try Strikers until I finish it.
That's fair.
Even though I understand that it's not... Technically, it's not a sequel to Royal, it's a sequel to just Persona 5, but...
It's still, yeah, I said my piece on it, but you'll probably have more coming into it from P5, so...
Yeah, I do think playing Persona 5 first adds to the experience, but is not necessary if you don't want to.
Well, that's cool. Well, today we're going to round out our conversation with an oldie but a goodie, because Brian was doing some cool stuff with this game, but we'll talk about the vanilla experience, because so far myself and Nicholas are very early into Fire Emblem Three Houses. We're both around, from the sounds of it, somewhat the same area. But my first question for you, Nicholas, which house did you choose? Or what's your first path, I guess?
I believe it's Golden Deer.
Oh, okay. I went Black Eagle. That's them, right? It's been a long time since I've played.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I thought that was them. Yeah, I went Black Eagle, and I heard they have some interesting stuff. And you've got Golden Deer, so you have Claude, who everybody loves. That's Claude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, have you been enjoying that?
So far, it's great. I'm pretty shocked. Well, maybe shocked isn't the right word, but I was pleasantly surprised at how quickly I became attached to the characters. Like, I'm not even very far into it. And when I picked that class, there were a couple people there. I'm like, oh, these seem like pretty interesting people. I'm a fan of Raphael, which is the, like, huge dude with, like, the iron-looking jaw.
He's a cinnamon roll. He's such a cinnamon roll. Sorry, go on.
And, like, so far, he's actually my best guy. Like, I've made him into a brawler, and he just seems indestructible. I know it's early on, and I'm sure he's got plenty of weaknesses, but I can just stack him up against guys on the field, and they sometimes don't even do any damage, and his speed makes it so I just attack like 2 or even 4 times. He's just a tank. But besides that, like, very quickly I was drawn into a lot of the other characters as well. And, just kind of directing, who I want to do what and, like, what they're going to be studying. And I can kind of, like, envision their future. makes me more attached to them and want to see them grow as characters.
Yeah, I agree. Like the whole cast has been so far quite interesting to interact with and get to know better. I'm trying to think. I mean, Dorothea stands out for me, mostly because I appeal as a singer, trained singer and stuff too. I commiserate with her as an opera singer, but then she's also is she a healer or is she a magic user? Well, they're both magic, but I just can't remember if she's offense or defense.
Yeah, by default, I believe she's offensive magic, but you can make her whatever you want. So
that's true. Yeah, and I really like the head of Black Eagle, which Brian, or Quinton, the name is
Edelgard.
Edelgard?
Yes, I really like her, and I've only finally recently started being able to cross-class her into stuff, so I think I have her. She's a Myrmidon, and she likes to wreck things. But it's really neat, and I love the tactical aspect of it. Again, this is my first, like, honest Fire Emblem game I've really, like, put time into. Like, I played a few demos of the ones on the DS and such, but I've never really gotten much into... I was into them, but they just came at a time where I didn't have time, money, whatever, to invest in the series, and then never went back to it. So having this one now to really sink my teeth into has been neat, and I've been wanting to go back for ages because I love my strategy RPGs, and then it's got a cool class system, and then there's a lot of cats around town. That's pretty cool too. It's a neat looking game, and I love exploring the little world. It's got like the strategy with relationship building and building friendships, and then trying to recruit people from other classes. It's got a lot going on. It's a very busy game. And I like that you've kind of got the hub that you can sort of upgrade and stuff too. And then I'm excited to see where it goes from there. But it's been a neat experience. And Quinton, you sound pretty familiar with it.
Oh yeah, I love it. It was my personal game of the year for 2019. I finished it, and like I was saying earlier, if I really enjoy a game, I kind of jump right back into it. Well, with Three Houses, I jumped back into it twice in a row. So I had 3 routes done by the end of, I don't know, September, which was maybe 2 months or so, 3 months or so after it came out. I don't remember. And then I saved the last one. The only reason I saved the last one was for once the expansion pass was done, so I could do it as like a, everything combined. And I still feel the itch to go back to it sometimes. I love the lore. I love the setting. Many of the characters are great. I said Raphael's a cinnamon roll, but so is Bernadetta. Love her to pieces. I
think Nathan was a huge Bernadetta fan.
Yeah, I don't want to start listing characters I like because we'll be here all night. It's one of those games where it's sort of BioWare-like in that sometimes characters will come across as wooden and two-dimensional at first, but then you kind of realize it was intentional. It was a writer's trick. You get to know them more, and honestly, I shed a few tears at certain points in the game that I won't go into. It's pretty emotionally satisfying, and I know some people are a little, like, I can see why some people get tired of the monastery, like, day-to-day grind by the end of the game and all that, but I just love going around and checking up on everybody. Something that I think you'll both have to look forward to is, depending on, how do I say this without spoiling anything? Well, depending on the way the game goes later on, you'll have characters that might have said one thing in one reality that did transpire for you, and then they have reason to say other things, and it's great. And yeah, you can interact with the cats and the dogs. You can feed them. What more do you want? I would say the only thing about the game, and this is an extreme nitpick. I mean, this is just a ridiculous nitpick. But whenever I'm thinking about Three Houses, the only thing that I remember as like ugh is the merchants. You start to get more and more merchants that'll show up to sell you stuff down in like the bazaar area, and they'll just say the same. You might have noticed them spun out. They'll say like the same 2 lines every time you buy something. So
NPC-itis.
Yeah, and it wasn't even something that bothered me so much. It's that I was playing the game without headphones just for months, and my poor roommate, the only one here out of the three of us who hasn't played it, she has to keep hearing, she'll hear the characters, the regular characters, and she'll be like, oh, I like him, I don't like him, I don't like her, But with the shopkeepers, it's just, you've got a good eye, you've got a good eye, you've got a good eye. Like every time you pick up like everything every week.
Just over it.
Yeah, oh, it drove her nuts. But other than that, yeah, Three Houses, great game.
Good to know. And Brian, you've, I'm presuming, have already gone through the game completely?
Yeah, Fire Emblem is my favorite game franchise, and I have a mild addiction to it. So I don't usually replay games at all. Fire Emblem games I play like 10 times. So, yeah, I've played a lot of Three Houses.
And then now you were saying you found a randomizer, though. So how does that shake up the formula? And again, I know you're going to do your best to be sensitive to our...
Yeah.
Again, old enough game, we shouldn't have to worry too much about spoilers, because whatever, but still.
So randomizing Three Houses is a little different than randomizing earlier games in the series. In earlier games, you can actually just go in and edit the save, which creates some hysterical results. Like you can play Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, and your lord can be some mid-game joining character as a skeleton.
What?
But Three Houses, you can't get anything quite that wild since you can't... Well, I guess you could go in and edit the save, but obviously it's a lot harder. So I just used a website that gives you all of your units and all of their classes, which gives you some pretty funny outcomes. The funniest on my team, I think, are Brawler Ignatz and Wyvern Lord Mercedes, which have been very interesting just trying to get them into those classes. Because you give Mercedes an axe, and she's no good with it, and she has a Bane, so it takes forever to raise the skill. So you have to figure out some way to baby this unit until they can finally get on a Wyvern.
Oof.
But which is interesting because it makes for interesting challenges because you don't have fully competent units, but I find it more fun than something like maddening mode, which I did one playthrough of and did not find particularly enjoyable. So I was happy to find a different way to add challenge to the game.
And what does maddening mode do?
It just makes the game real hard. You get very limited XP. Enemy units will one-shot you in the early game. So it's very slow and methodical to get through. And I played it once, and I don't really have an interest in doing another playthrough on it, so now I've been looking for different challenge runs to kind of spice up my Fire Emblem gameplay.
I like it. I dig it.
But it does make for some interesting situations. Like, I did Golden Deer, and I got Claude, I think it's called Dark Sorcerer, which you need a specific item for, and the earliest you can get it is Chapter 4, where it drops from a very difficult to kill enemy unless you have access to Lysithea. But I did not get Lysithea on my team, so I spent like 30 minutes to an hour planning how I'm gonna beat this guy to get his drop in Chapter 4, and then of course I got a random crit that made that all very easy. But it was still fun to do the planning.
That's good. Well, the randomizer, because I mean, a lot of these games that I've heard of randomizers in the past are usually older titles that get emulated and such like that and get rebuilt in that means. So how does that work on the Switch? Like, did you need to mod your Switch, which obviously friends at home we don't condone, or is it you're saying it's a thing on the website? So like, they just tell you like do this thing and then you have to go execute it, or?
Yeah, they just tell you what to do. They say these are the classes your units need to end up in, and these are the units you're allowed to use, and you just police yourself. But in older Fire Emblem games, you can definitely do more of what you've described, where you can actually go in and edit the game and get some pretty crazy outcomes, which is a little more fun, but I'm still enjoying the randomized run of Three Houses, too.
Well, that's kind of neat. Is that, Quinton, are you getting the bug now to go back?
Yeah.
Oh, that was so sad.
No, I got stuck on, because I always like to think in terms of games like Fire Emblem, Final Fantasy Tactics. I do enjoy even without like the randomizer. This is the first time I'm really hearing about it. It's cool. But even without that, I like to sometimes do files where I'll take characters and I'll give them job classes that just don't seem to fit their characterization at all. So when I heard Ignatz as a brawler, and especially like early on when he's just, his whole personality is just like, I'm not sure, you know, and then I'm just imagining him just run up to the enemy, okay, I'll try, and then just clobbering their skull in, like, it did something
I succeed?
to me, like, did I do it? You know, and he's just like standing over the corpse of like a dark sorcerer type or something like that. No, I love it.
Bleeding out, paralyzed.
I love it, yeah. Or like Bernadetta as a brawler is just, you know, to bring her back into it. It's stuck in my head now, and I really need to go put the game cartridge in the Switch and do it ASAP.
Yeah, watching Ignatz beat people down with his bare hands has been a highly amusing experience.
So thanks for being here, Quinton. Okay, bye. Oh, there goes Quinton.
Okay, yeah, it was great.
Yep.
It was great. Everybody quiet. I'm watching the opening again. I love the opening. No. I'll do it later.
That's totally fair. But yeah, that sounds super neat. I like that. I've never tried any randomizer stuff. I mean, the most wild one I've heard of, I can't remember if John, if you told me about it, or it was one that Scott brought up, our Twitch streamer Scott. There was a cool Legend of Zelda Link to the Past one that was mashed up with Metroid, where we would go into dungeons, or it was either every doorway or every dungeon, then you would have to go play through Metroid levels instead, and then you come back out, and then it would be Legend of Zelda or something. It sounded wild. That's all I know.
Boy, that sounds really fun. That's crazy.
Yeah, there are tournaments online for it. There are, it's big. There's a lot of crossover too with both the Metroid, Super Metroid speedrunning community and the Link to the Past speedrunning community, as well as the randomizing communities for both games. It's great to watch. That being said, not really my thing.
That's fair.
Yeah, SMZ, I think people call it on the. I just watch them on YouTube sometimes in the background while I'm doing some work, just because I find watching a nice randomizer to be a relaxing experience.
And hey, who doesn't have ADHD these days? I was going to ask a question about this whole idea, and maybe this will maybe make it more appealing to you, Jono, the idea of a randomizer, as we wrap up today's conversation. My fun question was inspired by Brian bringing up this Fire Emblem Three Houses randomizer, is for the panel here, what game, what RPG would you like to experience a randomizer in? I'll go first just to give you all time to think, and plus I had already thought up my answer because it also kind of dovetailed from our Bravely Default talk. I think any of the Bravelies, including Bravely Default 2, I think would be a wild fun time if the asterisks were randomized. Every time you won the battle, you didn't necessarily get the asterisk of the person you defeated. And I'm just curious how much that would skew the strategy of the game moving forward if you had certain powers or didn't.
Well, you don't need to worry about it because it exists.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for both Bravely Default and for Bravely Second.
I imagine, because so that would be, probably emulator territory.
Yeah.
Which, whereas it's not really a thing for this one. And one thing I would say about Bravely Default, which we touched on lightly, I do love how much easier it is to level up the classes. It seems like they wanted people to play around more with the jobs, so they made it feels easier to level up the jobs in this game and to master them than it did in the past ones. For some reason, I don't know, it just felt like a speedier process. But then there's also just some neat benefits of being able, it's also easier to mix and match some of like the passives and stuff in this one too, but there's also not as many of them. So it's, I like that. So I feel like it would just be really neat to do it that way. I'll turn it over. Which one of you wants to go first?
I was kind of going through the Rolodex of RPGs in my brain, and I was trying to dig deep because I didn't want to pick something that, is fresh in people's minds and we've been discussing.
I feel called out.
So I think what came to my mind was Suikoden 2.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I think that would be a really cool, like, all the dialogue and everything is still in place, but just the characters that you pick up are just are random. So like, Victor, he's still there and he says his lines and everything, but the character is actually, I don't know, I'm blanking on names. Pick one of 108.
One of the stars.
But just like a random, so you have no idea what party you're going to end up with.
That sounds like that would make that game even more wild than it already is. Brian, you looked ready to chime in. What was your answer?
Yeah, I would do... I bet there actually is one for this, but Paper Mario Thousand Year Door would be my pick, where you get the badges and companions in different orders. And I'd be interested to see how the randomized developers come up with a way to do that without soft locking the game, because that's always an interesting challenge.
Yeah, because, how does it break things? And would it be the same idea where the character is there for story reasons, but you don't actually have them in your party?
Yeah, that's the way most of these randomizers do it, because I knew it'd be an insane amount of work to... Man, imagine if you could just completely randomize a game and also change the story to match that randomization. That would be crazy.
I mean, it would be obviously slightly easier if it just swapped out, like the representative sprites. That's one thing that could be done in either scenario. It just they wouldn't have the quote unquote like right to character, so to speak, but it would just make it a little bit less of a brain and effing up your brain. But still, that would be fun. I was actually thinking about that too. I was like, I wonder if Jono's going to drop Super Mario RPG again. But it'd be interesting to see those games, randomize up who you get when, and again, how that changes the strategies. Which is, that's what this all is about. It's just like, how does it shake up your strategy? Quinton, what would you want to see randomized?
Okay, I've got a quick joke one and then a real one. The joke one, has anyone else here ever played, just by chance, the original Digimon World for PlayStation?
I have not.
Womp womp. Okay, long story short, the translation is so terrible that I don't know what's happening, like, half the time. And this is a game that requires you to, like what Digimon usually do, figure out how to digivolve them, how to, breed them and get them to get stronger. So I'm thinking maybe if that game was completely randomized, things might start to make sense. And I would actually be able to beat the game. I don't know, I mean, it's crazy. Like, maybe just randomize the text or something. No, but
I've heard every intro is pretty rough of those, though, so I'm not gonna... I don't distrust your opinion of it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. My real answer is Final Fantasy VI, in the sense that every time somebody, like a given character, let's say Edgar with tools, or his brother with Blitz, or Locke with, et cetera, every time they reach a certain level that would give them a new ability, they get somebody else's ability at random. Just completely, just make it so that by the time you're at the end of the game, you don't even know what's going on anymore. Sabin
and somebody randomly is Gao?
Yes, somebody just kind of, like, sometimes Sabin gets to level 25 and he just got, like, 2 or 3 random things from the Velt, like Gao, or Strago tries to learn, like, a blue magic thing. He ends up just stealing from an enemy. I don't know. You just go completely ridiculous with it. You make it so that the Espers teach completely random spells.
That'd be some bananas.
Everybody can equip everything until they can't. I would want to just take it to, like, the nth level, because I love Final Fantasy VI, and I need something new with it.
I just see you getting
randomizers do exist.
Say again?
Randomizers do exist for Final Fantasy VI. I don't think quite to the madness levels that you are suggesting.
Right? Like, I just feel like you get to Kefka in, like, the first, like, encounter, and Kefka will be like, you know what? This world's effed up enough as it is.
Yeah, you start off in the world of ruin, and then you try to make sure everything makes sense. And Kefka even helps you, because he's like, this is too much. This is just too much.
Or just, like, completely switch out the character, so it's like Realm turns out to be the insane mad person who destroys the world.
Oh, no.
Emperor Rachel, just sleeping, never does anything.
Finally give Gogo some story. He's actually the love child of an Esper and a human.
No, Gogo's the dog.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I like it. I really
Shadow
like
just
it.
summons Go-Go.
What is it that Shadow says? I can't remember the exact line, but it's basically like, don't get too close. The Go-Go eats strangers.
The dog eats strangers.
Yeah.
That'll be great. And then, just for the comedy of it, swap Umaro with Mog for all the dancing. He's so beautiful and elegant. His hair always, all of his fur in the wind and the breeze. Jono, round us out. What's your randomized offering?
I'd love to see like a randomized version of Tetris where you don't know what blocks are coming down.
Get out of here.
Let me finish. I don't mean that. I don't mean that in the sense that it's randomizing the blocks, because that's Tetris. I would genuinely like to see some random shapes.
That'd be the worst. Just every once in a while you get a triangle. What do I do with this?
I'm serious. I would like to see, like, just to see how hard. I mean, obviously you'd never be able to like get a completely flat plane going, but I would like to see that where occasionally there are like really random shapes thrown in aside from the usual 7.
That'd be awful.
Aside from that, actually, I think something I would like to see, but purely for comedy, and you can actually find a fair bit of this on YouTube, which is, I find it hysterically funny, would be a Yakuza randomizer, but it randomizes the characters. So the character models are all swapped just randomly throughout the entire game.
So
I'm here for it.
What voice?
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, there's a YouTube channel, IoTree, I think it is, and they just it's just a channel that does character swaps, and they focus a lot on Yakuza, and some of them are pure and utter magic, just comic gold. Especially if you like ship Majima and Kiryu, then it's amazing.
That's great.
But there are lots of videos. We were talking about the idle sections. So just sections of the game, just sections where Haruka is replaced with various other characters during her appearances on the show. It's pretty magical. I might send a link to maybe toss in the show notes just as an example.
We should also share that on social.
Yeah, some of it's very
funny.
funny.
Good fodder. That's great, and thank you everybody for sharing ridiculous ideas. Thank you, Nicholas and Quinton, for a bit more of a deeper dive, I guess, than our more fresh takes. But there's a lot of fodder for some fun, ridiculous randomization that it's fun to have like a new take on it when you go back to it, right? I still want to try some of like the Final Fantasy V ones and stuff too, which I guess would be similar to Bravely with getting the random jobs and such. So, and if I can try and maybe try one of the Bravely default, the vanilla ones, that'd be super cool too. Alright, well, I think I'm going to round up the show now, fellows. Is there anything else before I start wrapping things up? Any other final thoughts anyone needs to get out in these last few moments?
I want what Jono just said for Yakuza, except for Mass Effect. I want Rex's voice to come out of some character you never would have seen coming. I mean, like the reporter
Jack.
that Shepard runs into, or Jack. Oh. you got Morden's voice coming out of like Saren or Sovereign or something. I really need that. That's just my final thought.
I can definitely throw that back in there. Well, I think that brings us to the end of an episode, since we've gone full random at the end here. And let's, I guess, tell people what they've won for getting to the end of this episode. You win the opportunity to email Jono and I all your thoughts at podcast@rpgfan.com. Let us know how things are. Let us know what you want to see in the episode. Just let us know anything at all. I'm just tired of junk mail, really. I want to hear from you. Also, speaking of hearing from you, segue. Speaking of hearing from you folks, I want to give a shout out to Wolf Cypher, who, ever since we've made the transfer over to the new site, Wolf Cypher, you've been commenting on every episode with neat thoughts, and I try to check out the comments on the website. I'm not super good at it, and I'm sorry, but I did a little backlogging and finally was able to get into it. And I appreciate you wanting to keep the discussion going, and I hope other folks go check out the new site and the fact that you can leave comments and such. So if you have thoughts on the episode that you want to leave there, I'll keep trying to check that out. And thank you so much for listening to us. We appreciate knowing at least one person out there is listening. Additionally, we have other podcasts you can listen to. We did tease the fact that Retro Encounter is a thing that exists, and you probably know that already, so why not? Go listen to episodes of Retro Encounter, because there is a lot of Retro Encounter you can listen to. What was it? 260, I think, is what Solosi said last episode. Do you remember, Jono? Or anybody else that was on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good. They're getting up there.
Yep. And I'm kind of excited to see what he'll have in store for episode 300, because that's pretty momentous. And we have Rhythm Encounter back, so if you like listening to that RPG music, which I've gone through, I've been listening to a lot of JRPG nostalgia playlists lately on YouTube while doing work, so that's been kind of fun to revisit. If you want to go listen to some sweet tunes, and I think we said last episode that there's going to be a Bravely episode coming up, so we're keeping it Bravely this month. Go give that a listen. And then we have Hat and Eric, our fun partners who have the Phoenix Edge podcast that talks about more of the latest and greatest news and thoughts and stuff going on in the industry at large, and RPG stuff. So you've got all kinds of podcasts to listen to with all kinds of different facets, and we highly recommend them all because we're all pretty cool people. Listen to them, not going to lie.
Mm-hmm. The RPG Fan Network.
But otherwise, you've got this one. Today's episode with 5 white guys talking about video games. That's just unheard of in podcasts, right?
Never been done before.
This would be a cue for a cricket noise from Mike Solosi. Well, with that joke falling flat, folks, I think we're at the end of our show. Thank you so much, everyone, for being on. Thank you, everybody, for listening. For myself, Brian, Nicholas, Quinton, and my lovely co-host, Jono, take care.
Bye.